you in.
I know. Yeah. Actually, I was looking at planning commissions in the state of Arizona. And they have 3 members and 3 alternates.
I got to get
We're
Levi to
expected
my
to be at
husband
every
over here.
meeting. Yeah.
It's like a live understudy.
So they always have a
One
forum.
meeting a month?
No, I should look that up. I couldn't. No, I think yeah, 1 meeting a month. Yeah. And they have alternates there.
Why are we looking at Arizona specifically?
Because I was looking at something else.
Oh, okay.
in Arizona.
You start pulling threads.
And you're
Yeah.
like, huh?
And then I was like looking at the agenda because like that's how you find things. And I was and had the or looking at the minutes because that's where you find things.
Yes.
And the minutes had the attendance, and I was like, interesting. They had a chair. This was an 8-10. Okay. I don't know if this is how you count. A chair, 3 members, 3 alternates.
Interesting.
I don't know if the alternates can ask questions or that would suck.
Or also
That'd be a long-
the
That would be a
alternates
long
show up as
meeting.
well. Like you are in
Oh,
charge.
sorry.
Yes,
yes,
hello.
I haven't been there to be able to do it. Just, you know,
I'm guessing
asking.
that in that community, the alternates become.
Hi, Lise.
I'm sure it's like a.
Oh,
no,
Yeah,
you are.
welcome. We're next.
That's like.
I'm not where I normally am, so I feel all out of whack.
Have time to eat?
There's lots of food back there. Food.
You said you had lots of feedback.
No, I don't have any food back. That's probably not
Oh,
true.
yeah.
And I had in my vegetable shake love the heat.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, it was news to both me and you.
Well, no, not news, it's nice
Yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
nice to acknowledge it. The name tag.
On the name tag.
Oh, no.
Hi.
Good.
Good.
I always joke, I was like, the meetings are supposed to be morning when they're not.
No, I was out of town for that. But I appreciate all the comments. I haven't been able to read them all yet.
Yes, so sorry, they're on the entry
Probably
table.
tomorrow, actually.
Yes, so sorry.
And I
That's
had
okay.
sent, some questions into Alfred ahead, and if they didn't get sort of captured or discussed in the notes, I'll send them out to everybody.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And they didn't really want, and I just started watching. So he was doing much.
This is like if good.
Oh, it's amazing.
Visual big difference in town.
Yeah, and one of the things I asked.
The hospital did that once when they had to appoint somebody to their board, and I was like at the edge
Get
of my
some clear
seat.
mapping that shows us all the crossings that are coming. There's a lot of crossings, and I think we're only considering this one crossing,
Yeah,
in isolation, and that, I think we need to look at the big picture, in addition to the details, yeah.
Okay,
I didn't know there
but
were
they're not a
other crossings.
yeah.
And not all of it is orthogonal toward town, but if you look at West River Street
Yeah,
as the, I don't know, let's call it the baseline, I wanted to know what are the crossings from West River Street across the river, and from East and West River Street into town, what are all the crossings? It's a lot of crossings.
At least someone's paying attention.
Yeah. The river? Yeah.
And into town. And maybe we need all of them, maybe we do, but,
Well,
But
Oh, okay.
yeah, maybe.
Yes, oh yes, oh yes.
people not having to walk very,
Prior to his 1 year.
it's like,
so when your contract's in that way, there's not.
Yeah.
that's why we live in the mountains, that's why people come
Yeah.
here to walk. Destroy all the aesthetics of it by,
yeah,
And you can't get anything
the river,
accomplished.
I mean, the railroad thing just set my hair on fire
oh my
yesterday.
God.
Horrible,
Oh,
every bit of it.
So I think
The,
we,
I'm
the
not
more,
even-
it's like the more information that came, the more, it's like,
the worst
It's almost like,
Oh, that's like the hospital when I moved here. That's what the hospital
it
was
just
like.
seems
kinda like,
Sometimes, yes.
yeah, it's
the
been a while.
distance
seen anybody in
that
Yeah,
for months about,
So I still.
it's a matter of what's flat and walk. We
I was just
walk,
like, okay, you wouldn't be Hillary.
you know, through town, across
I'll let you pass.
I know.
flat walk, it's like 15 minutes maybe.
That's
You know,
fine.
and when they, the first
I
meeting
just
we
sent
had,
you
when
emails
they
anyway,
said,
There you go.
I should sit
it will
back
say.
Staff table.
Staff table.
Love it.
That's where
Look
you
at
get.
Danielle.
You actually get more work done here, cause like you can't get distracted, you cannot go get like a snack,
I
you
do,
cannot go get coffee.
I do. So like there was the
I
joint
don't,
meeting.
feel
But
like
it's not like your topic on it.
Yes, she's doing minutes, right? But like,
everybody
when
likes
I know, but then like when the joint jurisdictional meeting happened,
Well, I think
I literally came and sat in the room because it was like I was in like this bubble.
Yeah, you're like in the zone. You
Yes,
cannot get
yes,
distracted.
yes.
Right. You're filming
can do names and then there's a lot of comments, I'm like, okay, yes.
Proposal and, elevator proposal.
5:15.
Okay, I was like, I have an hour delay, so.
We need
That's
one
what
more,
I thought
right?
at 5, no one was here yet, and I was like, I thought this was 8.
I thought I was gonna be late.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you, Corey.
Right around and
John counts as 6, so we need 2 more.
Steph is here, so
Oh,
that's seven.
7,
So we need
one more.
Jeff to show
And
up.
Jeff is coming.
I know it comes up now.
And Travis will be here, but he's always late.
Yep,
Like a couple
yep.
Hey
minutes.
Corey.
Yeah, you-
I'm in the comments section today, but I'm just sitting.
Me too, but I work in this building, so.
Hillary looks very different today.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
So,
Pretty much.
So.
Yeah, I had coffee with Mitch the other day.
Oh,
and
good.
He spoke very
Which is,
highly
oh,
of
I'm so
everything
glad.
you
It's
did,
been a
so.
huge
Nice.
help for me.
I don't know.
He's good. He's a good little. Yeah.
Mentor.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sure, thank you. I
need
know.
to, that's why I need to get her.
I literally was like, if I don't eat her food now, I won't eat it.
They have so much going on.
Oh,
yeah,
I know,
so
I know.
pictures.
Oh, and then while, yes, and they were like digesting
Yeah.
it, and while you're trying to talk.
With a river running through it, there must have been a bridge.
I was joking with Kaylee, I was like, you get to
Quarter
go
mile.
first. Then you're at the end, you're like, oh, I should.
Made big city, and so
Right,
lots of
right, so we're eating.
traffic and stuff. Really
You know,
nothing.
it's that way Seattle.
Does he ever come to meetings?
He came to my first planning
Thank
commission.
Oh, nice.
And I
Aw.
was
Right.
called, he was,
That's
stayed
not
up,
our
he stayed up
model.
for like
But
2
sounded
hours,
like
which is
fun
way
after
more
all.
than
Yes,
expected.
yeah, that's a commitment.
And when I got home, he was like, that was the most boring, but also the most riveting thing I've ever seen. Like, and I, of course, like called him on the drive back, and like, here's what happened.
Yes.
Here's what's happening.
Yep,
And
yep,
here's
yep,
the
yep, yep.
cost.
It's just
And he was like,
Yeah.
okay, just tell me to get home.
minimum 20
It's
million.
like 9 o'clock.
You're like, yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
I used to, when I worked in, so I had Kaylee's job,
Right.
I could like not sleep afterwards.
Yeah, it's wired.
Yes.
Even if like everything goes the way you expected or wanted,
Yes,
it's still like,
but there was a lot of like not so sleep meetings when I was there. Yeah, so then, yeah.
I don't even know. She was like, she can schedule anything
Yes.
Wednesday morning
Yes.
until at least 10:30.
Mhm.
She's like, you will be late. And I was, and I don't know, it's 6, I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh. It's commitment.
Hey, I'm just worried about these things that come up with.
How are the veggie ones?
They were good.
Good.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The whole thing?
Are you vegetarian or pescatarian?
I had one of each.
I think I said her.
I don't do the red meat thing.
Oh, you eat chicken?
No mammal, hooved animals. I don't know, however you want to say it.
My stepmom's the same. She eats chicken and fish,
Yeah, same.
just no red.
But I eat duck and that's red meat, so that's why like the red meat thing's not really real. It's hooved things.
Hooved things. I like
Again, I
that.
don't know how much they.
Very specific.
Yeah, they make my tummy not feel good.
That's one thing.
That's fair.
Oh, I watched school work.
I used to never really eat red meat, but I kind of like crave it now. Do I have an iron deficiency?
Maybe.
Because I love it now.
Jan Holman.
I was a full vegetarian for like 12 years, but
Okay.
It's a lot.
it was a long time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I craved a turkey sandwich, and so I ate one, and then I never looked back.
Love a turkey.
I know, right?
It's like
So I'm surprised I thought it was 4 million. That is.
We're waiting for a quorum, everyone. We do expect one.
One
Just to be
more.
clear.
I saw Jan
Yeah,
walk in,
I'm
I'm like,
over
we
there.
Hi,
don't
Jan.
know him. And I'm like, no, we don't.
Nope,
Yeah.
just a member of the public.
You didn't miss the email, Jan, yet. I haven't sent it yet. It's not
I figured.
published yet. Will be shortly.
Oh, her chair is up there. Hi, Joan.
Can Joan hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see anybody. I can see the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, now I can see everybody.
Oh, my posture is terrible.
That's
So straight. That was awful. Don't look. No.
I think the angles on these are just lovely.
Yeah, it's
The
just like
lighting.
the perfect lighting and angle for
Well,
you.
yours is when you're sitting here and they put it on that TV.
Yeah, and you can see it.
Yes, and then this delayed.
He goes to zoom in, I'm like, please no.
But then it's also slightly delayed, and so you're like, did I just, oh, nope, that's late. Oh, okay.
See yourself while you're.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
That's a special one.
It is nice if you're presenting here, you're not looking
Right.
that way.
Yes.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
you're looking this way, so you don't
Yeah.
see yourself,
You got
which
it
is
right.
good.
Agreed.
Consulting?
Yeah, consulting, pro bono consulting, yeah, because this is gonna most likely wrap up in June. We just decided that I would be together rather than getting a new
Waiting
person.
for
And
Carl.
so
Yeah,
I do a debrief with them.
Yeah.
Let me look at that tomorrow.
So,
Cause it could be, like, even what happened once before, if the doorbell's on, it means that something's open, like your passenger door or something.
no, she got a job with, Sugar Pine Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, really, she's really excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me,
They wanted to expand and build up
Let
a
me look
bigger
at that.
program, and
Do you have to,
Sarah's
But
a
that
like
gives
the
me a
first
good
idea,
idea.
they wanted somebody.
there's something
do you have
about
to get
it.
your
and
backflow
that's what Sarah
tested
wanted.
year,
So
every year on
so-
your home? Or is it every other year on your home? Do you know the answer to that?
Do sugar plums
Okay, sounds good, I'll look at it in the morning.
They do, yep. There
Right,
are
my dad
a
is
number
too.
that you can
Okay.
even see from 89
We'll look at it
north
first.
Okay,
around.
cause the guy
Makes
that did
sense.
ours last year
Summit.
just emailed me and he
You know, I
was
know
like,
it's hard
I'm
when
gonna
you're
be in
driving through
Hopkins Village
the
tomorrow,
mountain,
like, do you want me
If
to
you look,
come?
if you're driving northbound and you look on the west side, you
Well,
can see.
legally you have to do it, like, they'll come and yell at you. Yeah, cause you get a notice.
John,
Who yells at
you
you?
off the
No,
committee?
water people, I don't
yeah.
know.
It's mine.
Like the PUD?
It's not everybody's.
Well, yeah,
It's
we're
mine.
not in the PUD, but
Oh, okay.
That the records about
Are you in North Star?
species
Oh,
mix
okay.
in our area
you decided?
before
I was
Yeah.
put in the dark
1830, the records are.
But yeah, I think if you get like
So
enough
you
delinquent,
can
they like
find
turn your
pretty much
water off.
any answer you
Wow.
want
Yeah,
to species
And
mix
you
and
have to pay
density
for it?
mix.
yeah,
Oh, interesting.
full ownership.
But
I just to say, I
Pay
love
for
that I don't
everything.
know this.
So I think it's.
Does not take
I'm
offense, bitch.
sure there
Yeah.
are people that have
I feel like
very
sometimes
educated
it
guesses
just
of
depends on
you know,
what
what their range was. But certainly.
Right, you should have known that.
I mean, there's still.
But is it
are
more cause of
Don't you know?
around the
financial,
summit.
gain versus, interest maybe?
Oh,
Is it more cause of financial
coming out
Yep.
gain or benefit?
until later.
Actually didn't see
Yeah.
like
It's gonna be on the
Very
shoot.
different.
catalyst
Let's not make
project
a
that
fuss of
seems
comments.
to
Not to
start,
bite down.
making
can
the
still
case
find them.
for
Yeah.
yeah, on the west shore, these kind of arbitrary
Yep.
setbacks that have been put on the river.
Yes.
That was when it
Still
was
now?
like there was some, like, I wouldn't be able to like.
We expect Travis. We expect Jeff. He's running late.
I'm gonna fill my water bottle then, cause I'll see them coming.
All these things I can do.
Quirky,
Yeah.
they're not symmetrical.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know,
One
they're
more.
so easy to find, right? Because the pine cones grow way out at the tips
Yeah.
and they're so big, it's easy to see them.
Well, and they have that.
I can pitch hit the meeting if you need me
Oh,
to,
yeah.
if Jeff doesn't get here.
Branches are all
Right.
different lengths.
Right.
If so, we'll like squish in and make everybody sit.
I know, I have this whole row to myself.
We could invite our members of the public.
Set the table.
So we're just waiting for one more for quorum. We are expecting 2 more.
I like that.
We'll keep trying.
At least you got good food.
Yep.
And Stephanie, I didn't get to watch the recording yet, but it's on my list to do tomorrow
It's
morning.
okay, I just appreciate you
Oh yeah,
as
I
always responding.
think a lot of us realize that I think it started as a small, like, oh, we'll kick that can, and it's you're pointing out that it has
Kind
gone
of
on.
confusing.
Oh, agreed.
She was on a
Okay, I was like, we don't need her.
call with
I hear someone. Nope. I mean, there is someone coming, but it's not a quorum person.
Sorry. We don't have a quorum yet?
No.
Not yet. Jeff's driving over now.
Okay. Nope, I was on a phone call.
Probably about 15 minutes late.
silent cheer when they arrive.
Jesse.
I think your outfit's very Key West. Like professional Key West. Mm-hmm.
Vibing on the spring.
Uh-huh.
Springtime feels.
Uh-huh.
Tomorrow it's gonna be like 70.
I know.
I can't wait.
So excited.
I'm so excited. Don't look too far out on Monday.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Uh-huh. We'll get there, we'll get there.
When we hear somebody coming, should we all do like?
Yeah. Rumble.
We'll all hide under the table.
There's microphones in the floor.
We can get Augie. He can pretend to be Richard.
Is he here?
He's probably gone now. But he
Okay.
was here. Testing him about it.
He can come to meetings.
I know.
Anybody was unaware today's is Mug Scotch Day.
Aww. How many years? 3? Yeah.
The other day I was walking Augie and Lou, and Muggs was like coming out, and they both love Muggs, and so like Augie never barks, right? And he was like high pitched puppy barking because he was so excited to see Muggs, and Muggs was just like, like I don't really,
It's
I don't
not-
need anything to do
not
with you two.
mutual.
Mug
Yeah.
psychs out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was really cute. Oh, he's like bouncing. I was like, calm down. I know he's a celebrity, but
He is. Lisa was telling me she'll be in Reno driving and she'll see like Mug's sticker, like his face, like on random cars in Reno. Like no one even might not realize who he is. He's just like a dog.
Anybody have a good joke they want to
That is Dustin's wedding anniversary. May 4th.
Justin Hazelton?
Yep.
You know, that seems, I can see that.
He's like,
Am I the one required for a forum?
Yep.
Wow!
and you get to
Keep on strolling in.
Keep on strolling in.
I think you can sit right here.
Yeah.
Not pushing board out.
From one board meeting to another.
How's your day?
Good. I was working at my paid job.
So waiting for that timesheet.
Yes.
Do you want to take a moment and do you need any food or beverage? Really good food
No.
out there.
Oh, what was it?
Harry
Enchiladas.
Cinco de Mayo,
Oh.
delicious salad with chunks of cheese.
Wow.
Goat cheese.
I will wait for now. Okay, so shall we start?
Yes.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. A lot of people are not here, which is why I am doing this. Kaylee, can we do? Yes, Kaylee, can we do roll call?
Oh, can we start with Jones?
Oh,
The
yes.
yellow piece there?
Oh, okay. Joan to disclose is on.
Yes, she can hear us.
Hi.
Okay. Hi.
I'll jump in here.
Okay.
I would like to disclose that I am not able to attend tonight due to a medical emergency in my family. And I would like to ask the committee to allow me to be attend via virtually.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be clear, we did that for Brown Act rules. These are
Yes.
state rules of what we did.
We hope.
Oh, I do need to disclose as well that there is no one in the room with me that's a person. I have my dog, but and my husband is in the house with me. So Russ Jones.
All right. Well, Joan, thank you for attending, and we hope everything is okay with your circumstance.
Thank you.
Now, can we do a roll call?
Yes. Chair Joan Jones,
Here.
committee members Alicia Barr, absent. Travis Pribble, absent. Tim Rupert.
Here.
Corey Caldwell.
Here.
Jessica Penman,
Here.
Steph Olivieri,
Here.
Ryan Wright, absent. Richard Palante, absent. Jeffrey Manosco,
Here?
Lisa Wallace,
Here.
Rolf Godon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, move to public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on items that are not on this agenda. Please state your name for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Any public comments? No public comments. We will. Oh, yes. If the 2 members of the public would like to sit at the big table, you're welcome to. So you have something to write on.
Just to fill in our table.
Yes.
To fill it.
Yes.
To eat dinner.
Yes.
Dinner too.
You can have dinner.
The food is excellent.
Okay, so we've closed public comment. Item 4, consent. Would any member like to pull an item for consent? And I believe the only thing on the consent is the minutes from the last meeting. Okay, if no one wants to pull anything, is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I move that we pass the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The consent agenda is passed. Okay, presentations. We have presentation. Okay, I'm sorry. Staff updates.
I'll just share very quickly, and I'll offer to let him share his own words around this as well, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Jan Holland is no longer a member of R2SC or any of our action teams. That was chosen by Jan's choice just to ensure there was no perception of a conflict, given his role, as we all realize, that he represents a group of property owners with our Calais site. And so that made sure that there was no perception or reality of any type of conflict. Did you want to add anything around that, Jan?
Oh, well, I won't be missing you all because I'll be coming anyway. I just will be a little more frustrated in my ability to speak.
Perfect.
You'll hear from me.
Those are the only updates I had. Do you have anything, Jen?
I'll just add kind of adjacent to this, we had our second community meeting for the pedestrian feasibility study. Steph was there and Rolf was there, so thank you for that. It was in the field and sorry Rory. It was in the field and there were some cones set out so you could really kind of get a visual representation of what ramps would look like. We had some graphics about undercrossing and then if it was an elevator versus ramps. I think it was a good meeting. There's some homework that everybody's doing in terms of assessing criteria and overall thoughts on that, but kind of adjacent to this, just thought I'd bring that up. And Steph and Ralph, if you want to add anything.
Pardon me? Anything I want to add?
If you'd like to, you're welcome to, or you don't have to.
No, my hair was on fire after the tour. That's my input.
Just for context, they're looking at it connecting West River Street to downtown, Pass Road. Is it overcrossing or undercrossing?
Having the visual of the cones that showed just how where the ramps would come out, those are always so helpful to see it in a project like story poles. And I think that we should use aids like that much more frequently.
On the site physically where it'll be.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think staff did a great job of putting together
Yeah, they sure
all
did.
the details, and the presentation was excellent. The
Yes.
tour helped immensely. And I think staff should be commended for the effort.
They did. Alfred is staffing that committee, and also think he's not here, but Travis hosted at Truckee Tire, and it was a very nice place to have everybody convene as it started before walking out at the railroad tracks. Anything else, Jen?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Does anybody need a printed copy of the PowerPoint?
Thank you.
Yeah. Done with stuff?
All right, so we're done Any public comment for staff updates? Not seen, we'll close staff updates and then discussion items. 2 discussion items tonight, right? I guess technically 3. We'll discuss the playbook, action team and subcommittee updates, and then any member updates after that. So we'll go to, I believe, Stephanie or Carissa. Stephanie? Or, yep.
We'll share again, so I guess we'll just share in one.
I'll just share here so we can see Joan, and I'll double check that she can see that. Joan, can you see the presentation?
Can you see the presentation?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Okay, well, as Jeff said.
Now I can,
Oh,
but I don't
perfect.
see, I can't, I have a box called Town of Truckee that's black. And then I have one TTM that is either you all or the presentation.
Okay. So we know that if you see the presentation, you don't see us.
Yeah.
I don't think you get both, Joan,
Yep.
so.
Okay, fine.
We'll give the overview and then stop sharing, so
Okay.
that way we can see everybody. So as Jeff said, the intent of the discussion tonight really is about reviewing the content of the draft playbook, but focusing on the elements where we have differences. So there are some differences based on the conversations that I had, and through the discussions that we've had for the past year and a half, where there's still.
Stephanie, can you use the mic?
Oh, yeah.
How about this? Where there's still some areas where there's not 100% alignment, and so we want to discuss what consensus wants to look like for this group, and then what we might think about in terms of coming to consensus and what that might look like for compromise. So, the areas where we do have alignment really are around those vision and goals. There's been a number of exercises that we've gone through, the ideas of, being able to hear the river, having access to the river, having a vibrant and a thriving riverfront that honors the past, but also envisions a dynamic future that also, integrates the town's funky industrial character, really has been a consensus around the room. We also have real alignment around the overall goals that we're trying to achieve, about restoration for river health and access, to keep the area vibrant and connected, that idea of pedestrian connectivity, bicycle connectivity, and then the idea that we want to make sure that the look of the place is in line with that vision as well. The differentiator that we've talked about is from the 2005 plan has really been around the private property owner partnership piece, and in particular the catalyst projects, that there's a commitment to working with property owners and helping them realize the vision for their properties in alignment with the overall corridor vision and goals. So last month we spent time talking, because we didn't have the R2SC meeting. It was actually a nice opportunity to speak one-on-one with people to dive into the topics about what really describes mixed use for people, and understanding the draft descriptions that we had, where there was alignment and where there might be some areas where we still have differences. So just as an overall, we have 3 areas of mixed use that we're looking at, again, to provide that flexibility for improvement. One that you can see in the blue, West River mixed use, the green, Downtown River mixed use, and then the purple, East River mixed use. For the East River mixed use draft description, there needs to be an image added here about the image to the river, so I'll acknowledge that as a comment too. But the areas that we have thumbs up were essentially those areas where everybody was like, yeah, that is reflective of my vision for this space, and full agreement. Where there was a yellow sort of side thumb is an area where there were different opinions. So those areas are really about the level of infill growth, whether that should be minor infill growth within this area, or whether it should just be infill growth or major infill growth. That we really want to see those parcels that right now don't have development on it, or have a low level of housing on them, that there was feedback that some people would really like to see that fully built out and not to constrain it in some way. The flip side to that was a preference to make sure that there was some open space still to have connectivity, visual connectivity to the river corridor. And that on the number 5, a little bit of varying opinions on whether we should allow for single-family residential here or whether we should not, whether it should be high density or maybe medium density, and then the allowance of some commercial or mixed-use development. But everyone was in agreement that overall that type of mixed use really wants to not generate high traffic volume. So again, some alignment and then some areas where we have differing opinions. Moving on to the downtown river mixed use area. We'll only touch on this for a minute because there was general alignment within all the people that I spoke to of the descriptions that we talk about here. And I think a lot of this is because it's built out, it's an area that is built out, and there's a acknowledgement that yes, there would be some, it would be nice to have some more residential uses in the downtown, but really the scale of what's going on there is in alignment with the vision. And then finally, we have the West River mixed use draft description. Again, a number of areas where we have alignment. Those areas with the hand in yellow are those areas where there's some different opinions still, and that aligns with the higher density residential, what that density wants to be for residential, and how it can mix into existing uses. And then again, really around the idea of service uses and outdoor storage. And can you have some limited outdoor storage mixed with residential and adjacent to residential, and could design standards work for that? There's still differing opinions around that. So we want to come back and understand, is there a recommendation from the committee about a compromise there? I'll walk through these maps briefly. These are the pedestrian bike enhancements. Overall, there was general agreement in terms of the bike connectivity. These are all the comments on all the different pieces. I think the segments that you'll see in the draft plan being revised is that shared use path segment, the black dotted line on the north of the railroad track connecting across to Donna Creek and then up through the Mouse Hole. The recommendation was to drop that because it required a pretty significant bridge and then have a north-south connection to West River Street, making the connection back down versus having that extra bridge. I would say overall, there was also more support or more comments that I received about the multiple bridges that are also proposed. So the bridge that you saw at River Park Place, and then on the East River side, there were 2 additional pedestrian bridges identified, and the feedback for those was only if there's really demand for it. So let's wait and see what the use demand actually is overall with the new pedestrian bridges that have gone in, the overall circulation pieces, and then assess need at that time to understand if the need for pedestrian bike connection and the use of that additional bridge would really warrant its expense. So I'm just for time, I think we're not gonna focus on the bike and ped pieces here. We really wanna focus our conversation today on the recommendation for decision making, and then also thinking about those sticky issues that we've had for the past year. So East River Street, the level of development that we want, the level of, is it major infill? Is it minor infill? Are we restricting any of the types of residential? Is it high density residential or not? And then on West River, it's really about the outdoor storage and some of the mixes of the service uses. And is there a compromise there that the committee wants to come forward with? So just to set the groundwork for us all, it's good to think about what consensus looks like. Consensus as a whole is broad agreement, and that the committee has comfort moving forward. It may or it may not mean 100% unanimity. There can be options for if members disagree. You could provide options for what would compromise like, or you could opt to say, I dissent, but I want to have my views recognized and recorded, but still allow the full committee to say, I'm comfortable with moving forward, but I want to acknowledge that I didn't fully agree with this piece. So as we come back to it, we want to understand what the R2SC feels about consensus. And from my understanding, the committee really wants 100% consensus. So we'll see if we can get there tonight. And then the other piece of the ground rules is really, and this is not in your packet, but just a reminder as we're thinking through these topics, that we really want to focus on solutions. So we want to focus forward. We want to stay solution oriented. We've talked for the past year about these issues, and I would say that everyone in the room is fairly familiar with each other's positions. So what we want to focus tonight on is about what's possible, not what's previously been said. Trust each other that your perspectives have been heard, and I would also ask us to trust that there's other people in the room whose perspectives we know, and we want to make sure that those are reflected in our discussion tonight as well, because this committee has really worked very well together, and I want to make sure that that trust is not lost because somebody's not able to be here tonight. I want to assume that each other has positive intent, that we want a good outcome, and approach disagreement with curiosity, that we want to respect each other's views, and disagree constructively as well. So we can challenge ideas, but not the people. It's okay to disagree, just do it with respect. That we're aiming for progress. We might not get perfection, but we want progress. I think that's been something that's been inspiring throughout this process too with the Catalyst projects, that we're going to try some stuff and we're going to start having some improvements and looking for shared ground. And then I'm not being brief right now, but just try to be brief. So we do have limited time and we want to make sure everybody is heard. So share your perspectives and then listen as much as we speak. So on the areas to the right, you can see those areas that I talked about, but these are the sticky points, and I think we all know them. So East River Street, the question really is about how much infill is the right amount of infill. Are we looking for full build out that we really want to we really want to see housing. We really want to see as much as we can there, or do we want to say that we want to allow some open space and keep some open space and encourage that? And then on West River Street, it's can some essential services uses remain and be integrated? Perhaps it's limited with a quota. And could some limited outdoor storage be allowed as development comes in, as long as it's screened in a way that is acceptable to the group? I'm going to share one more slide. So this was, as we think about what has been discussed in terms of flexibility and having flexibility with guardrails, as the different issues have come up, one potential recommendation or idea for the committee to think about for moving forward would be to have a process similar to a planned development process where as a property owner comes forward with a concept, that they would first bring their concept to an appointed advisory board. That advisory board would have representatives from a river health perspective, from a community and connectivity perspective, and also from a development perspective. The purpose of bringing the concept forward would be to work with this advisory board to understand through a pre-application process, what recommendations for exceptions or incentives might be appropriate for the project to be able to allow it to move forward in a flexible way. So it's a little bit more of a project by project piece of saying, for example, a project says, I will provide more trail connectivity or more floodplain restoration or more river access in some way, shape, or form, or trying to meet one of those goals that have been set by the playbook and by the R2SC. And because I'm going to meet that goal in a different way, I can then have a flexibility in one of the current development standards in order to be able to meet that. So, for example, some of that might be a relaxed setback or an increased height, that there might be a give and take there in order to be able to help facilitate making the projects happen. The advisory board considerations for those project concepts would also consider compatibility with the surrounding uses and context, because that's another concept that has come up of, well, one project in isolation, as it moves forward, you want to think about what it's actually next to as well, and that could be part of this review process. And this, again, this is just an option for consideration, just to help get us started. But in this example, the process would start with this advisory board instead of starting with staff. So that the intent of that is really to help make it public, so that it's about a little bit more like the Catalyst project or an ambassador program where the advisory board is trying to help find solutions and make recommendations back. But this is just an option, and I think it can also be tailored in many different ways as well. So I'm going to leave that questions, and then we'll start discussion. Lisa, it looks like you have some questions.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. Sorry if I'm behind on this. Have we seen a draft playbook yet?
You will see it tonight, so there
Okay.
are copies, and then it will be digitally sent to you tomorrow morning, but there's, we have 10 copies, so we have one for everyone. And then, review of that we'll discuss after this as well. But this piece there's a piece in the playbook about it, but it will be modified based on conversation tonight, because there's still these ongoing questions that haven't completely been nailed.
And then, is the idea still that there's a final playbook at our June meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it goes to and I get it, timelines can change, but the idea is a final playbook at our June meeting, and then it would go to town council in July. The playbook will go to town council in July.
Potentially, if there were consensus.
Yeah,
Okay.
recommendation up here. Rolf?
Well, would you define what you mean by essential services?
Essential services are this, we'll just say auto repair. So, like the auto repair shop. That has been a sticky wicket of, could we have some kind of those types of services that's still in the corridor and mixed in with residential?
So what would, I think about essential services like would be food, clothing, and shelter or something.
So
So I don't, like auto repair, where does that fit in essentials?
So let's
What isn't an essential service?
Well, let's maybe not try to like wrap our hand around the specific naming of the services. I think just to lay the groundwork, we're really trying to identify those uses, the areas where we haven't had full agreement within this committee, which have been, can residential be next to an auto repair store?
I would say it might be helpful to think of it as like a resident-facing business.
Yeah.
So something that a tourist might not actually utilize, but a resident is gonna utilize, like snowplow or auto repair. If you're trying to like wrap your head around it, that might be an easier term to think about. Does that make sense?
And I'll just, in some of the uses that are currently in the corridor, essentially.
Mhm.
As I said, essentially. So,
Could
other
I-
general questions?
Just
Steph?
a clarification also. With the suggestion of an advisory board, this is after everything's done and someone brings a project forward based on
Based on the playbook.
the playbook
yeah.
and the concepts. The advisory board, we're not sure who will be on that, but bottom line, who has to approve what the advisory board recommends? Is that town council? Does it still have a step beyond that?
It would still have to go to town council.
It would have to go to
And planning commission.
And planning commission, okay, just like a normal project, but the advisory council board does its best to keep it in line with what's proposed in the blue book, in the
Yeah, and Danielle can weigh in too, but I think when we were trying to brainstorm ways to give you flexibility, the idea was with a plan development, you get concessions in exchange for community benefit, right? And then staff works with the applicant on what those concessions are and what the community benefit is that's kind of equal to that. The idea was to take that away from staff in terms of, does this meet the intention of the playbook, and have representatives on this committee that would say this meets the goals and just check those boxes. And then it would move forward through the process versus staff trying to go back and forth and make that determination for the committee.
Thank you.
Is it fair to say it's similar to what we're doing with the 3 catalyst projects, where you're working with the land business owner to find consensus to how to get to yes?
I think it would be less involved than
Less
that.
involved, but similar concept.
I know, like your role as a liaison is to make sure that the project as it's moving forward, we're still adhering to it.
I understood because of the way it's called out with the 3 sub-bullets, that there would also be, using this word, I'm trying to use this word thoughtfully, that there would also be kind of a compliance element with the playbook. So one of the things that's really important, as we know, is the river health piece. So the advisory committee would also be able to look at that and make sure that that piece is being addressed and not overly, is the word traded? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and I think we acknowledge that there's some parcels that maybe river health isn't as
Yeah.
relevant for, and instead of us trying to interpret what we think, we wanna honor the work that you all have put into this, and wanted to give back some of that, like, you agree that it's not relevant in this case, so maybe that one doesn't need a checkbox. Move on to the next one.
I could imagine too, just thinking about it from a developer's perspective, this could be something that the planning commission could take on if we wanted to not have an extra step from an advisory committee piece. And you could also imagine potentially like a rubric being set up with the goals, and these are how many points you get if you're gonna provide this type of restoration, so that a developer could still work through that process independently and get a sense of where his project or if a project might land.
Not to get too far into it, I
Yeah.
know, but one thing that, we talked about at the River Health Action Team, that if this kind of committee came about, one of the things that we talked about is that, there's somebody somewhere somehow needs to be able to look at projects that come forward and see if they're meeting all the criteria.
Yeah.
And so if this comes about, that it addresses an issue that was surfaced in our action team.
Yeah.
I think, I'll say from staff's perspective, we certainly didn't try to flesh this out in a lot of detail, but if the concept is something you're interested in us exploring, we'd be happy to do that. If you'd rather just go in a different direction, we're okay with that as well. We just wanted to kind of start throwing out some ideas of how we could,
I have a question. With the River Health Committee, I don't see their, report in here that we got.
It's in it should be in the packet.
Yeah, it was in the
I didn't
packet.
print the whole packet, sorry.
And-
I printed the agenda as a PowerPoint.
And we'll go,
I can
we'll
give-
talk.
I can print some, if that would be helpful for the
Yeah, I
conversation.
think it's helpful because I think River Health is the community's, one of the main important,
Yeah.
one of the main things that the community was focused on and
Give me
wanted.
just a minute, I'll get those printed.
Yeah, and, I didn't.
And Steph, it's in the playbook.
Where is it in here?
It's not in the presentation tonight, but it's in the playbook.
Hey,
Right, I
Madison,
know
can
it
you just
is,
flip through
I left it at home because I thought we were gonna get a copy of it. So,
Oh, okay.
I've read it, and the concern I have with it is that it asks, it asks more questions than helping us with answers about river health. And that concerns me, because when we're talking about, giving, let's see, I just flipped over it, flexibility in projects based on, community benefit, possibly giving, smaller setbacks. I'm banking on the science of the river, the health of the river, and the science, what does the science tell us? And out of all of this, I still haven't gotten an answer to that, really. I'm not sure we've answered that.
So what is needed for it to be answered?
Well, is it appropriate to trade off setback for community benefit for a project? Is that appropriate?
I think we're too in the weeds. Right, cause now we're talking about the ambassador program piece, but we're not even sure that's what we wanna do, right? That's just an idea.
No, I'm talking overall.
Right, okay.
Not
I
the-
think,
The ambassador group hopefully would be.
Would be part of that.
Would be part of that, and they'd be directed by that, but have they got answers? I mean, Lisa, you would know.
So I guess the question is that if we do an ambassador program, that there might be additional information that is needed for them to be able to provide the information back, to be able to make decisions.
Right, and somewhere in this whole, portfolio for people who are going to be guided by it, they need to know that.
So maybe to Jessica's point in terms of peeling back, because the Truckee River setbacks piece, we're gonna talk about that separately as a separate discussion item. So if we come back to, let's just go back to this piece of what would compromise, well, maybe first, just what does consensus want to look like for this group? Do we want 100% buy-in?
Sorry to keep asking all these
That's okay.
process questions, but literally only half of us are here.
Yes.
So I'm confused about even about the question about consensus when half of us are
Well,
here.
it'd be nice to understand from the perspective of the people in this room what consensus would look like, and then we can
Okay.
move on to how we want to move forward as well.
So, are we assuming that 100% we're not gonna get there? Or
I
can
don't
we
know,
say that?
I don't know, I think it depends on where we might land on some of the compromises, if there are compromises.
Got it.
And the idea of a program that allows for some of the flexibility to come in, and what information is needed to be able to make sure that's set up correctly.
Is it accurate that in theory, the advisory board would be there to accelerate change on the river in alignment with the playbook and R2SC goals, as opposed to the current mindset, right, wrong, or indifferent, and it just came out in the reports yesterday of the answer is no, 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 but to go to an advisory board, it can more rapidly get the land business owner into alignment with what might be possible.
That's the intent.
That would be the intent.
That's the intent.
Without, I would argue, to, giving away the farm for economic development. That's not, it would be a holistic view to get the land business owner into service with their business.
And to
or
work-
their house, or their trail, whatever it is they're doing.
And to work through with the property owners on a bit more of a project-by-project basis, some of the.
On the location by location,
Yeah.
based on the exact science of what's going on there.
Yeah.
But just on this question, not the
Yeah.
advisory committee question, so I'm, one person, I am pretty comfortable with 1, 2, and 3 listed on your proposal for, so what I'm talking about is, what your question is about, what the question that's on the
Consensus.
table
What
is
does consensus
our
look like?
decision-making, not the advisory committee decision-making, not the town council, but ours, our
Yes.
2SC. So just one person, I'm comfortable with what you have listed, including all 3 of the pieces.
Other thoughts? No, and I appreciate.
I agree with
I
Lisa.
appreciate,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
we're only 50%, so it's 50% of the 100%.
But this allows for,
It's a little
this
litmus for us.
allows for a way to incorporate diving catch in the end zone feedback from the missing 50%.
Yes.
I love that phrasing.
The missing 50% that are here.
49 technically.
49%, sorry. Were you able to talk to all of them before?
I was able to talk to one.
Okay.
People that were not currently, or two of people that were not currently.
Bummer, but
Okay,
One.
that was
This
gonna be
does-
like, well, then we got there.
Yeah.
it
but
does
yes.
give us
But
a way to go
but I do know
forward,
where
though.
there's, the disagreements are on that.
Right.
I think we all know where they're.
And I know from the Community Economic Vitality Action Team discussing barriers, lots and lots of discussion of how to, whether it's changing the culture or working in a more collaborative way, but early feedback to the land business owner earlier with expectation management. I think this advisory board addresses those barriers right now, some of those. So from the Economic Vitality Action Team, I think it would be unanimous agreement to some form of, whether it was an advisory board, an ombudsman program, to help get land business owners through the process without having to be a professional expert developer. This is their 34th project.
Would you envision this as similar to HPAC?
I am unfamiliar with HPAC, so I would only be repeating hearsay. Hearsay I always hear is, that's the Department of No. meaning it is not an accelerator. So I'll stop
Yeah,
there because
no,
I don't
that's-
know. But when people say HPAC, it's kind of like it's a bad word because it stops projects in their tracks. Is what I've heard. I've never done development. I don't even know anyone HPAC, so we'll stop spreading rumors.
Jen,
But it seems to, like the mission of HPAC is that if it's in a historic district,
Right.
somebody goes there to ferret out
Right.
if it's how appropriate this is and
Right.
that it's a pre,
Pre.
a pre-formal process.
Yeah. Sounds like similar
Yeah,
in theory.
that this could be something, a standing commission like that.
Right.
I guess, Danielle, you can weigh in too. I would say maybe envision to be similar to HPAC in that it's advisory, they're not making approval decisions.
They're what?
It's advisory.
It's not a decision-making
Right,
body.
Yeah.
but this advisory board is also advisory, right?
That's the similarity to HPAC from my perspective,
Yeah.
is that it would be advisory only.
Right, that it's a pre-formal process.
Do you,
I'd prefer if we didn't call it an ambassador program, just for that reason, that if it just had a more neutral name.
I agree. And I would say the difference between what I think we're envisioning with this ambassador program versus HPAC. HPAC has a very specific set of playbook that to maintain the historic nature of our community. It's really, the rules are very well defined for them. What we're trying to do is keep it very undefined, but to allow some way to have guardrails that can relate to what we have discussed for 2 years and the playbook and see that vision move forward while allowing still the flexibility.
are there other thoughts about what compromise might look like? Other ideas? This is just one of the advisory committee. Other thoughts? Can you allow for some public comment?
Let's open public comment. Yes, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm usually a little skeptical of more committees because as we've just sort of cast aspersions on HPAC, but then said our committee will be like HPAC, you know, there's that risk, right, that you start with good intentions, but you end up with, you know, generally speaking, more committees usually means a slower process, not a faster one, right? So we have to ask ourselves what's different about this, and it's hard to answer that sometimes. There's also, of course, this sort of nuts and bolts of more staff time, finding 5 community members to be on this who are not conflicted and can show up on time. You know, it just adds a lot of bureaucracy. I think that there are some other ideas, but I'll first dive in a little bit on the committee idea. If you do go with a committee approach, I think it's best that it not be the only path, right? So right now, today, the community development director is able to make a determination that a project provides substantial public benefit and thus should be granted some leeway. That's great. That determination gets made fairly often in our town. If you create a committee, it should be an option to go to that committee, but you can still get that determination from the community development director without having to go to committee. That's one. 2, I think that if the committee has a really broad latitude and it's sort of vaguely looking at development standards and everything, all you've done is just duplicate planning commission, and now you make projects go through 2 planning commissions, which does not speed things up and frankly opens up a lot more opportunity for dissent. You know, consensus takes time, right? So it generally would be slower. Instead, I think the committee, if a committee had to be formed, I think should be focused on a really narrow question. So the narrow question could be, does this provide substantial public benefit according to the criteria that the R2SC committee established, right? A very narrow question. And then lastly, I would stay away from solutions or trade-offs because as all we know, design by committee never looks good. Let the professionals do that trade-off, I would say, the designing. You know, the committee should be narrowly focused on, is this providing enough benefit, yes or no, or we need more benefit on river health or something, right? Whatever is missing from the, according to the criteria. That's what I think would be the requirements for a successful committee. Having said all that, I'm not sure committee is the only answer. And it's funny that this is bucketed under ambassador program, because I think ambassadorship is, for those that read David Diamond's report yesterday, there's I think he called it the ombudsman program. And I don't know if those are actually the same idea or really related, but I think that's a separate idea that I think is less bureaucratic, requires less committee time, doesn't have Brown Act implications. I just see a lot of bureaucratic benefits to an ombudsman style approach, and I see it in our current Catalyst site project approach where we've essentially piloted that. So I see a lot more benefits there without the pitfalls of committee. That's all, thank you.
Since we're in public.
Do you want to close it? Or,
Is there any other public comment? John?
Well, I guess the question I have is, we have public comment on what was presented earlier, or this last?
It's one of the same.
Okay.
Everything, sorry.
It's one of the same.
Well, I mean, I guess just being both now public and seeing how the cookie's been baked, so to speak, I'm a little concerned about a fair amount of change that's happening based on, some one-on-one interviews, which I was grateful to be part of. And it seems like we're marching towards, okay, now we're gonna bake this pie and, deliver it. And so I'm definitely a bit worried about that. I don't know where this, the ambassador program, but I would say that, what Jason just shared, I really resonate with as a property owner, because as excited as we are about this Catalyst project, one of the concerns I have is, well, just created a lot more meetings, a lot more public engagement, things like that. So I think that that's certainly an issue. And then I just have a couple comments about, I imagine we'll be talking about the playbook here shortly, but I'm worried that we don't have, like, if we start talking about trails and pedestrian connectivity, I think that we should have some other stakeholders in the room, like Truckee Trails Foundation, which is a big proponent of connectivity and trails. I also a little concerned that we are making decisions based on what the perceived cost of things are, like the perceived cost of the connection across Donner Creek. We're like, well, that trails seems important, but the bridge is expensive, so we shouldn't put it in there. I don't think that we have the information. We're not the experts on it, and it doesn't hurt to put it on the map. I would assume that in the future, town councils will make that decision based on whether it's a priority or not. I mean, that's $30 million. That's insane. We're not going to spend the money. And I would just say that I don't think that we're going to demonstrate use of bridges because people are not swimming or wading across the Truckee River. If people said we needed a bridge down at East River, the only reason we have one there is because it was for hauling poop across from one side of the river to the other. And looking now, it's like one of our best assets in town for the river. So I guess that's my 2 cents about that.
I guess
Go ahead.
my question is that would that ambassador program be for private properties, or I guess with what Jan's saying, or is this like the trails and all the infrastructure development? Because to me it seems like that's what a committee is for, not necessarily an ambassador program, to determine, that's what we're here for, is determine what is feasible, and we talk about river access and all that stuff through, but do we need river access through private properties? Like, isn't this where the town should buy an easement? If they want river access, the town buys that easement, but to me it seems like to lessen the load on the private sector as far as what they are required to do to develop, and set the guidelines of, okay, river health, and noise and aesthetics, if you want that. Like, what other things do we have? We're concerned about an auto shop, but really it's not necessarily the auto shop, because like we've talked before, is you can have an auto shop that's really clean and nicely situated, and it would fly probably anywhere. It could be cool, you know, an old restoration shop. That's an auto shop, but they're restoring old cars, and people walk by and they got glass doors on their shop, and you can look in. So, or is it more of like, you know, the noise and the unsightliness and river health? So to me, it's like, why not set guidelines on those things and then free up and let the developers make the most of those decisions on their own? And if they're, you know, even Jan's property, I don't know, fully understand how his development is gonna look, but my thought is if his idea to me doesn't make sense, what does it really matter? As long as he's following guidelines of river health, and, you know, and it doesn't work, somebody's gonna come along and buy his all the buildings and everything and remodel them or do whatever and make it work. So it's kind of,
Yes.
like,
So
it kind of
couple
works
really
its
good
way
ideas
out.
there, and I wanna clarify, so the river health piece, so as a property comes forward, for example, they could say, I have this project, but in order to be able to actually make it pencil financially, I need to have more density, or I need to have additional height. They could come to the ambassador program, typically they would come to staff in this example. And one of the benefits or community benefits that they could trade for that additional height, that additional density, would be floodplain restoration or river access. That they're providing one of those benefits that have been identified in the playbook, and then saying, I will do more than what I've been asked for at a baseline in order to be able to get something a little bit extra that actually makes my project pencil. So that's sort of the trade-off there. And those areas of river access, the river health restoration pieces have been identified from the River Health and Access Action Team. So the advisory committee, or it could be the planning commission, to Jason's point, I think there's some value to say, why another step? That is another hurdle for somebody. But and maybe there's a different way to organize this. I think we were throwing out an idea to see, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. Maybe there's something that you have a thought about of what could be compromised, like the noise, right? Maybe it's not about the use, but I wanna say that there's some operational guidelines and some stricter noise scenic guidelines in this area that we'd like to be able to craft. And that's the direction we'd like to hear from you about what could make this work. Is it another advisory committee? Is it more operational performance standards? Or a mix?
Maybe we should move into some of the, maybe we could come back to this idea once we've started talking about some of the content, some of those blue box items.
Sure.
See where we.
So if we start on the East River streets, and it's been nice starting in reverse, since we always start on West River Street. The question really is about how much infill. So the comment had come up in the discussion about, a number of comments had come up about making sure that we added information about keeping some open space, that there doesn't want to be a wall of additional infill development along that stretch of East River Street. But there was a countering opinion that said, you know what, we need housing, and this is a great place for it, so is it bad to?
That was me, I was the
major-
countering opinion, so I'll take credit for that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think it's deserving of making sure that we're either saying, no, you know what, we want some open space, or, yeah, I think let's move forward, and if it ends up being, you know, fully built, then that's okay. And the comment also came up of, you know, work-live units there, could they still be some kind of compatibility with residential as well? If someone has a shop, that they have a residential unit above some of the uses that have been there previously.
No, we're talking about the East River Street, the south side, right?
East River Street, the south side.
Yep.
And there's, what, one parcel that's undeveloped on that whole street, right?
No, there's one that's undeveloped, and there's some that have, like contractor offices, and
Yeah.
maybe there's it's not fully used for residential, which is what it's zoned for.
Well, I think Carla Pombo said that on their property, isn't it limited, or they're kind of handicapped because of how high the density is? So,
Like how many
It's-
units they would have to put on?
yeah, I think that's a hard thing to hit. I mean,
Yes,
I'm
so there'd be
dealing with
discussion,
that too.
should it be high density or should it be medium density?
Right,
Yeah.
but I don't know, I think the flexibility of that, like the homeowner, I think, or the property owner can they're gonna mostly make, financial decisions on it, so it's
Yeah.
sometimes high density doesn't work, calculate, it's too much.
I would also say the floodplain in this area, just the the topography of the sites themselves are challenging to have a wall-to-wall development on some of these sites, which is why they're not developed.
Can you define medium density?
Medium density is what unit? 14? I think it's 14.
Per
14 or
acre?
16. 16 units, 16 dwelling units per acre?
If you know the developments that's down
Per
behind
per
the
acre that's
regional park,
developable.
that's
Yeah, per
14 units an
developable
acre.
acre. And I
Which
would
I think is an important
The one
distinction
that's
that we
kinda
haven't
back
been
there,
making.
that's
when we're
14,
thinking
that's a
about
medium,
stuff.
Riverview, right.
I would say, I did a little bit of just backhand calculation on the Pombo property and some of the parcels in that area. To your point, developable acreage, so you have a parcel, say it's 10,000 square feet, but some of these parcels, more than half of them are in the floodplain, so that's not developable. So your dwelling units per acre end up being off of the remaining 2,000 square feet. So one unit
Yeah.
divided by 2,000 square feet is almost high density.
Yeah.
Like you could put a townhome on some of the parcels and essentially have 2 dwelling units per acre, and it's a high density unit. Because you can only, the max number of units you could have per developable acre is 2 units.
Right.
Would you be allowed to put a single-family residence on a, if you did that calculation?
I don't think single family is allowed in high density zone district.
Back to the medium density, based on the general plan definition, it's 6 to 12 units per acre. And then I have to look at the single family one, it's in a different section.
Pending, being under review, so.
So that,
I mean, what's hard about that is we still have like Housing Accountability Act and SB 330, and so a single family home often can still be allowed, but, I would need to look at it.
so that the issues are, the points of contention are the open space versus any use, and then if there's use, the density of the use, and wanting to minimize traffic on East River Street.
No, there was no contention about that any of these uses that go in, that they should all be low traffic volume
Okay.
inducing uses. There was consistent feedback that yes, that makes sense. So even if there was some type of small commercial use that was a work-live situation, that someone had an office in their ground floor and they lived in the upper floor, they had some kind of shop in their ground floor and lived in their upper floor, that still wouldn't have, not a lot of traffic that would be generated by that use. So really the contention is about, should we, in that description, describe that there is some open space that wants to be still maintained, or is it that we're really trying to promote development and infill?
Well, well, it's hard to describe open space on private property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
is.
there's already gonna be open space because of the floodplain. I know that long stretch of
Yep.
empty property, the building envelope's not very much, so there's a lot of river property. So I think you could almost just say single unit to high density, and
Yeah.
with some allowances for live work units, and that like opens the door, let people develop what they want.
Yep, I
How do people
feel
feel about
comfortable
that?
with that.
And we're gonna keep the park, access, the East River Trail access will be maintained as a open space park.
What, Joan, what is
That's not
that?
in question, I assume.
What is the East
The
River
East River
Street Trail?
Trailhead, there was discussion by the committee about incorporating language about enhancing the trailhead, providing improved park facilities, improved river access at the trailhead. So yes, that's in there, that hasn't been in question.
And there's public land available to do that? We're not back in the private land, private
Yeah.
ownership problem?
Yeah, there's TTSA and then there's TSD back there, TTSD.
So the area there on the north side of the bridge where everyone parks and stuff, is that public land?
Quasi-public since TSD.
Quasi.
I think we
It's a
just,
sanitary district.
Owned by a public agency.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's
just,
not owned by
I
the
wanna say,
town,
I
but
think
it
I probably agree with this proposal. I also wanna say that the reason that TSD, that specific TSD parcel is not already a park is that it's a landfill.
Oh.
Right, so just so we're
On the river.
clear that,
Yeah. Make
not
it an
promising
old-
ourselves we're gonna have a park there.
But you could have
There's on the other side too.
Yeah.
parking there.
There is parking there right now.
Right,
On the,
on that,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a historic landfill.
Yep.
It's a historic landfill.
Chair, I have a question of
Interesting.
timing
Can't
of
be-
public
Don't
comment.
let HVAC know.
Yeah.
Seems like we're
develop
going on to a
without-
different topic. Great to be
Yeah.
able to chime in.
But, yeah, but I still think there's, so anyway, the reason I'm just saying that out there, we're not making a decision, thinking we're gonna have a park and make all
Yeah.
those other decisions, and we're not gonna get a park. But, I think that the 100-year floodplain limitations, I'm not talking about a town setback, but just the 100-year floodplain limitations, do create, I mean,
It is what it is because of it.
yeah. Yeah, so
That's a good point.
it's not as though we're, it's not as though we're really giving something up, because a lot of it is in the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my thought when I said it. It was like, I think we should infill the amount we can infill, but there's a lot of it that we can't infill, so it doesn't actually, not that it doesn't matter, but like I don't think it's as much as you might think that you're
And then
potentially giving up for a view shed.
I'm not sure what everybody thinks, maybe we could express a preference for, this idea of the view. I really love that, Andy and Alicia, Andy Barr said this about not everything has to be physical access to the river, but view shed access. You know, so maybe we would be comfortable expressing, you know, view shed preference for the infill that happens.
Public comment?
Yeah, this really applies to both East River and West River, but I think we keep talking about this idea of wanting to have either public view of the river or public access or potentially access to the other side, you know, things like that. And nowhere in this document that I can tell are we encouraging, you know, either the town or the land trust or other community groups to potentially purchase, trade, easements essentially to create public access points. Because to me, this East River spot is pretty well, you know, if you're walking, is quite a ways from actually the East River Park area, and is midway down that, midway between that and downtown. And I think it would be an amazing place to have some sort of public access. And I've long said that River Park Place, there needs to be some sort of public access, because otherwise, and the people that are accessing the river there and accessing nature are trespassing. And I don't think we want that to be the case 10 years, 20 years from now. So I think encouraging, having some sort of, some language that is saying that we would love to work with a private property owner to create some legal public access would be amazing.
Yeah,
public comment.
Second public comment. I'm very pro housing, and I'm always looking for sites for infill for housing. But I'm not sure riverfront property is the best place for high density or high intensity use of housing, just because of the economics that tend to go into that. And I think if we think about the whole corridor, I think north, on the West River, north of the road, south of the railroads, is actually like probably a great site for really high density. But, you know, if we were to picture like artist lofts on Al Pombo's yard, is that what people want to see? Like, that's the highest intensity use of housing I can think of in our town, so I don't know if that's a bad example, but, and you know, obviously what I'm saying is, I think no one's actually advocating for that, so but I would lean heavily towards lower intensity or at most somewhat medium
At least
or
the
moderate.
visual of it is lower intensity. It's just
Yeah.
the parcel sizes there and the developable land is such
Yeah,
an
it's so
interesting way
tiny.
that's different. But so if we brought it back to committee, I think Tim, you had a suggestion, well, okay to say, I mean, should we change this instead of saying high density essentially to medium density with the, or at least the look feel of duplex, triplex, like that's the look feel density that we're going for infill, acknowledging
Well-
that the environmental constraints.
We would be downgrading the lot capability, correct, on some of those?
I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's just I wanna capture what the intent of what type of development we're looking for, and if you were to
But I
envision
think-
that scale of development, that's right, not an apartment, right, we're not saying apartments.
Right.
We're saying essentially something that looks like a duplex, or maybe a stacked flat. You know,
Yeah,
that
I'm
has
just,
like
I'm
2 or
more
3
concerned
units.
of the property owner, so say there is somebody down there that wants to do a higher density, and then all of a sudden we say, no, medium density and smaller, and they go, oh, well, that, now my project doesn't pencil. So,
So we could
for
keep- we
me,
could
it's
keep
like,
it, 'cause
if we're limited, which
yeah.
we are with the river, you're not gonna have artist lofts there, because as long as you don't have some restricted, income rentals on that section, or some type of restrictions for that, you're not. The value of those rentals is gonna be very high, and there, you will not have an
They're
artist
gonna
loft there.
be multi-million-dollar.
Yeah.
Condos.
I wanna just
Oh,
check myself.
condos.
Condos.
It's not gonna be workforce housing.
Make sure we're not straying into some.
It's 24 an acre.
Incorrect.
For high density, right?
But,
That's what it says.
Yeah.
too.
Oh, what it's zoned as.
Okay.
Just,
Joan,
in,
Joan has her hand up.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Steph.
Uh-huh.
I agree with what Tim's saying, but what I want to actually go the other direction in that if somebody wants to build a beautiful home there and owns that property as well, that should still be allowed as well. Those are high value asset land parcels that should have kind of the full range of options for housing. All housing, but full range of options.
Joan, what about mixed-use housing?
I'm okay with the live work idea, is that,
Yeah.
you know, that I think as long as we have the traffic and noise all in check and it's low intensity. But somebody wants to do a hairdresser shop out of their, you know, part of their property or an ADU or whatever, I'm fine with that as well. I think is the qualification is that it's all residential.
And Stephanie, listen, so we have 45 minutes. We
Yeah.
wanna talk river setbacks
And we wanna go to West River Street, so.
and West River Street.
So if I say full spectrum of residential, how does the group feel?
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay, let's go to West River. So the, piece here, let's just maybe focus on the second bullet. The integration of, can there be some outdoor storage on West River Street with residential? We've talked about.
You say some,
Are we
you mean-
talking about both sides of the river now?
I think this is interesting, because when we did the one-on-ones, you know, there was a lot of talk about flexibility, in previous meetings, and when we did on one-on-ones, I think there was a lot of, folks trying to find solutions, which was really great, because people started coming up with, well, maybe it's okay here, maybe if we do this, 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 So it was all kinds of different scenarios of, maybe we could have some outdoor storage on the north side of the river, or north side of the West River Street, not on the south side, but we still want flexibility on the south side. Maybe there's okay if there's a separation or a buffer and transition between that use and another use. So there was some discussion, it seemed like, of people trying to come to some kind of, some compromise to be able to allow those existing uses to stay while allowing for infill of residential as well. So with that in mind, would there be, what would a compromise solution? Or is it?
Could I ask a clarifying question? So the town is not gonna go purchase, this would be changing like the planning code such that if I wanted to go build storage units, the town would say no.
Not storage, outdoor storage.
Outdoor storage.
Not storage units.
Okay, so,
Like a contractor, yeah.
okay.
Like there could be some kind of contractor.
So I just wanna make sure, effectively, the only way it would pencil out right now is you already have to own the land there and owned it for a long time. If I went and purchased a lot there, there's no way it'd be open storage land, I'd lose, no one can afford it.
Yeah, I
So-
wonder is, I'm
So
sorry,
I just wanna
excuse me.
understand what is the actionable decision we're actually contemplating?
Yeah,
It would be that some outdoor storage, so say a property owner who had some use that had some auxiliary outdoor storage there, that they wanted to maintain that while redeveloping. So they wanted to bring in residential and not fully have to say all outdoor storage at that point in time had to go. I could maintain a little bit as part of my development and maintain that revenue.
So I'll do some building, but I need to keep some of
I need to
this and
keep
not
some of
make
it.
it legal non-conforming or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
or illegal non-conforming. Okay.
And perhaps as one idea is that there could be a quota for the corridor, right? We could cap it and say, maybe that could happen, but we are only gonna allow this much in perpetuity. And that means that could actually incentivize people to say, well, I wanna make sure that that's mine, and I'm gonna redevelop quicker to be able to say that I've locked that in, and then I can transition it out when I, it economically makes sense.
So I'm a little confused. Are we talking about existing legal non-conforming use, or are we talking about new uses that would request outdoor storage?
No, I think, and that's something that this group can consider, right? We're talking about legal non-conforming, really. Nobody's talked about adding new, but.
So it'd
we
be
should make
creating
sure.
a new legal non-conforming.
But you're not saying there's new.
Cause right now it's conforming to have outdoor storage.
Is it?
It is, right
on
now, it's
some of
right
those
now on
lots.
some of the
Yeah,
lots.
it's zoned industrial.
Mhm.
But if you were to, I think like the Hendrickson property has probably the most outdoor storage and capped it, and then Hendrickson wanted to take one of those parcels and do something different, then they would, now it becomes legal or illegal
Are
non-conforming.
we sure it's not legal?
It's
is it
legal right
legal
now.
non-conforming,
So it'd be creating a new
under the new
rule
guidelines of
to make it-
mixed use?
Sorry, you're both talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Stephanie's asking about like the Hendrickson's properties.
Yeah.
cause that's the easiest example, I think.
As it currently sits, legal non-conforming?
The uses,
For uses, it's conforming.
I don't think it's conforming.
It's not?
mean,
I thought it was
There could be
industrial.
some uses that are conforming, but its entirety, I don't think so.
Okay, is outdoor storage conforming? For
Well,
like
outdoor
rocking boats?
storage has to be associated with a primary use, so it's based on that, which I don't know off the top of my head all the uses that are out there. I mean, in the last 10 years, we've approved some conforming uses that have outdoor storage.
But currently, if I clarify, it's currently, the zoning district currently is industrial. Even though the master plan or the
Yes.
general plan has a land use designation of mixed use, we're determining what that mixed use piece is, so you can actually define the zoning district and enact that. Change the zoning district to
We can,
mixed
yes.
use, right?
We can, yes.
Change the zoning to,
It can change to mixed use, but it hasn't changed to mixed use.
It has not changed to
I know that, but once it's changed to mixed use, then,
It depends on how we define it, so we can have mixed
Yeah.
use with caveats.
Which could be a caveat, so one idea could be that there could be a caveat that there is some auxiliary outdoor storage allowed, maybe there's a quota to that.
What if we just raise the question, because we're gonna end up not being able to solve this.
I mean, the
So
planning
just a
commission
very
also
high-
grappled with this, and they were more comfortable with outdoor storage happening on the north side of West River than they
Yeah.
were on the river.
But
But they
it-
also wanted it behind buildings and, distance away from West River Street, not visible to the public. So they had some bullet points of where they would be comfortable with that.
So I can understand where they would try to do that, but I think that we're going to be putting a lot of, hopefully, residential units in that area. And when you have residential, you're gonna probably have a couple of floors. It's not gonna all be ground floor, it's gonna be medium to high density. And the question is, if you continue to allow outdoor storage in those areas, do you get people interested in building housing? And is there value in doing that? And that's my concern. I think a perfect example is, as I've always said, Ciro Mancuso's projects where we required housing above the industrial uses or that were there. And Ciro came to our committee and said he doesn't recommend it. It doesn't work. It isn't a good idea. It's not compatible for families. It's dangerous for children, for outdoor, and you do look right down on it. And I'm hoping that most of you have driven up there to look at this. It's great on paper, but in reality, it is an eyesore, and it's going to be difficult to get people to, I believe, invest in the north part of the West River Street.
Tim, not to call you out, but I'm gonna call you out. Didn't you used to live in one of the places that? What was your? I'm just curious, like, because I was in those meetings with Ciro when he said that, but I would be curious to hear from like people who have actually lived there, if they're what they felt the
Someone
issues.
testified.
Oh, did
A
they?
woman testified at one of the hearings.
It's actually really nice on weekends. It's really quiet. But weekdays, if you're working, it's fine because you're gone. But
Yeah.
like, especially industrial way that's like, not enough parking. It's so tight there anyway. So that's a pain on that street. Just trying to live in that area, find parking that some construction worker or metal fabricator is now taking up your parking spot. But and then I think I mentioned the snow removal operations a little bit, just plowing all the complexes at night, but mainly TNT when they're paving or pouring on the freeway in the middle of the night. You got trucks running with their backup Upers, but that stuff, and that's where I'm kind of on West River Street. I think you can have outside storage. I don't know if any of you guys know Ryan Couts, but he has a development in Bird Eye that he's done over the last few years, and it's worth looking at. I haven't been up close since he's built most of his buildings, but they have outside storage, nice buildings up front, and it is more like industrial looking, but that's all kind of how the aesthetics of the buildings are,
Is there housing around it?
No, not on his stuff, there isn't.
Yeah.
So,
I would
but
say, one thing that other places are doing, just a second, Joan, is that for areas where there's mixed use and there's some outdoor storage, that there could be some restrictions on the type of units.
That's gonna be my question.
Having condos, having other types of units that would sort of indicate that there's probably not families that would be in those units as well. Joan, did you have something?
Yeah, I think what was done up at Pioneer Center is very different than what we're talking about, in that I think we would have areas of concentrated housing, and then we'd have areas maybe of more commercial. And the outdoor storage uses could be varied. A nursery would have outdoor storage. A Mountain Home Center got outdoor storage, which is basically a outdoor furniture shop. There's lots of different types of outdoor storage, so it's not all construction yards with high density equipment on them.
How would we deal with that in the zoning?
Well, it could be that there is a quota piece to it in terms of the amount and size and some buffers as well between, so it's not a mixed use, it has, or a vertical use, it has to be a horizontal use as well, and that horizontal use has to be set back from residential in a certain way. I guess.
Yeah, we could use land berms. I was in a residential, beautiful residential neighborhood in Sacramento today, and next door was a industrial area, and there was this very lovely treed berm basically between the two, so they didn't cross over. I think there's creative ways to do it.
I would say this is, and I want to respect Jeff's note that we do have another meaty item.
Yeah, we do.
So is the committee, I don't think we're gonna get here today on this one, but this is one of those sticky areas where we need to understand, is there a compromise? And perhaps we can bring some other examples forward for next month. There is language in the playbook that you'll see that has the mix recommendation, because there have been views on both sides, so acknowledging that we'll get comments on that and we'll still work it out in the next meeting as well. Lisa?
I think you're probably right that we can't get there tonight, probably agree with you on that. I just would say that I'm still haunted by the last 20 years being overly prescriptive.
Yes.
Really, it still really bothers me. And so I'm a proponent for probably what's in the playbook, letting it be mixed use, not
But there's some
otherwise,
residential that comes in.
yeah, letting it be
outdoor
mixed
storage.
use, and trusting that developments will come forward that will be driven by the market.
Yeah, so
And that
I
will
think the
address
market's gonna be a big part of this, right?
We're good.
Public comment.
Did you have something before, and then we can close?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I, like with Stephanie, what Stephanie's saying, like, I don't wanna see a construction yard down there, and I'm not trying to say, oh, I want my yard to be there. There's not enough room anyways, the land's too valuable. But like if there was some stuff up against the railroad tracks, you know, and there was a section that, you know, had a berm like Joan was saying or something, and it was designed that way, and there's a road that blocks, you know, some of this industrial outside storage stuff from the rest of it. I think it can work. I'm kind of more up for on the side of the property owner and allowing a little bit of flexibility to let people be creative and say, hey, well, what if I did this? And then, well, yeah, if it's not visible, or, I mean, look at Peak Landscape. Here, he bought a piece of property, and when he first bought, he's like, I don't know if I can afford the property, you know, and he still hasn't built his building yet, but it's nice. He landscaped it great, and he has a tall fence, and you can't see his equipment. And I'm sure if you go into the yard, it's messy probably, although he seems to keep his stuff nice. But it's fine. It's not disruptive. So.
Ralph?
Yeah, because I was thinking, if you know, had some development on the north side there particularly, you know, you're gonna, where's the equipment that's gonna move snow and that sort of stuff, snow plows or whatever, that it takes to keep an area
Community.
Yeah.
going, where's that, you know, that's gonna have to be stored somewhere.
Yeah.
So, I think that,
Yeah, I think we got that comment of like the essential services and maybe it should be by.
Reduce some if done appropriately.
So let's bring it back, along with comments at the next one and make sure we're getting that description right. Do you wanna close and do Jason?
Jason?
Sure. So for what it's worth, I actually am hearing a lot of consensus. I know a bunch of people said we can't decide on this tonight, and that's fine too, but I did hear a consensus. And I just wanted to add one thing, which we use this term mixed use a lot, and I want to clarify that there's sort of two categories of mixed use. One is called vertical mixed use, and one is called horizontal mixed use. And sometimes people are talking about the different ones and get confused by each other, so I just want to point this out. So vertical mixed use is when you have a stack of uses on top of each other in the same building. So like the ground floor is commercial, the second floor is office, and the third and fourth floors are housing. Horizontal mixed use is when you have a neighborhood that has a mix of uses in different parcels and different buildings that are adjacent to each other. And I think what we're all, I hope, talking about is horizontal mixed use, which is what I think your comment was about. I'm not picturing Pioneer Center, which is actually more of a vertical mixed use concept, because every building there is industrial, with some of them have housing on top. That's more vertical mixed use. So to the comment, I think is right. If you think of a horizontal mixed use neighborhood and you allow both industrial and outdoor storage and housing, ultimately that just puts it in the hands of the developers on what is profitable and what can they build and what do their residents want to see and not see. And right now in our moment, housing is the highest and best use, pretty much. It's probably the highest return. I like to imagine a future in 10 years when that's not the case and we've solved our housing problem, and maybe it's commercial or even industrial that is in demand. So by not picking one right now, we ultimately let the market have more flexibility.
Are you saying that housing is not vertical, so you're saying horizontal, excuse me, so the housing would all be horizontal?
No, that a development could be all housing with no commercial in it, but next door is a commercial development, on the other side is industrial. That's still a mixed-use community, like neighborhood.
Right.
But the project itself only has one use, residential.
By uses, not vertical and horizontal.
It could be stacked high or it could
Yeah,
be wide.
yeah,
Either
okay.
way, I'm
I
just
thought
saying
you were
that-
limiting it
yes.
to
No, definitely
simply
not.
horizontal development.
I really hope it's tall housing.
Yeah.
But that not requiring it, the ground floor to be industrial or commercial or something. Let the developers decide. They may want that. They may not.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be, from what we've heard from Aaron, one of the reasons we haven't seen development is because there are still properties getting revenue. So being allowing, which drives up the cost for land, so you have to buy out a property, not just for land value, but also for the business value, which increases the barrier for them to actually invest in it. So being able to help shift some of those pieces might unlock some things. Let's go ahead and move over to River.
Yes, setback.
Setbacks. So we had both our River Health Access Action Team and the Community Economic Vitality Action Team discussed the Truckee River setbacks during their action team meetings this month. So basically, and because of time, and a number of you were in those meetings, I won't go through this in detail, but at a high level, there are 4 conditions that essentially exist. There's conditions related to the overall development chapter related to river setbacks, which are a setback from the 100-year floodplain. And this 100-year floodplain, for reference, people reference the FEMA floodplain. The 100-year floodplain is actually set by an engineer specialized in understanding where the floodplain is. There's a 100-year setback from that 100-year floodplain for any of the parcels that are outside of the downtown Truckee area, which is outside of the downtown Truckee plan area, essentially McIver east to East River Street within our corridor are those parcels. And then along West River Street, there's a recognition that there's a 75-foot setback, and that's due to an overlay district, a river protection overlay district. So that's the example on the top is that horizontal setback, and then there's some areas on East River Street and elsewhere within the downtown Truckee plan area that the setback is the horizontal distance of 1 vertical foot above the floodplain. So depending on your topography, depending on your parcel location, your setback varies. So that, if you can see that in this map, essentially the darker pink parcels are those parcels subject to a 75-foot setback from the 100-year floodplain. The light pink parcels, essentially from McIver to East River Street Bridge, are subject to the horizontal, a setback that's horizontal distance of 1 vertical foot above the base flood elevation. And then there's some residential parcels that have a different setback as well. These are some enlargements of that. The RHAT, there was a memo included in the packet.
The setbacks are all town driven.
Right.
The FEMA floodplain is unchangeable, but the setback is a town constraint.
So just to clarify, the 100-year floodplain is, we use the FEMA often as a starting point.
Right.
The 100-year floodplain is determined by an engineer, so it's not unchangeable.
Okay.
As a project goes through, you would have an engineer, a hydrologist, go and actually map the floodplain to set it in
Right.
place.
Oh wait, so can you so it is changeable?
Yes, not the FEMA floodplain, that's separate than a 100-year floodplain that's determined by a hydrologist, geologist.
Oh, okay.
Geomorphologist.
It is,
They're
it's
usually very
confusing,
similar.
it's regulatory, it has to
Right.
be adhered to, it's not
Yeah.
actually that flexible.
So here's
Just pretend
here's what
it's
I'm saying,
fine.
as we have the conversation, there are four, the town of Truckee has 4 rules in terms of setbacks. There's a 100-foot setback, a 75-foot setback, really 3, and then 1 foot above. So depending on where you are on the river, there's 3 different setback rules. Those 3 rules are set by town policy.
Yeah,
the
that's
town
what we're talking
council.
about, is the town.
And so what we're
setback.
talking about is it 75 feet, 100 feet, or 1 vertical foot? That is within the town's control, town council.
And when was the last time that they looked at that?
So these were set established first in 97 with the specific plan.
When the town,
the
after the town was
specific plan.
incorporated,
Yeah.
shortly thereafter, do you have?
Danielle and I had a chance to talk to them about
Yes.
They started looking at this in 96, but they were adopted after the floods. It wasn't necessarily a result of the flood in 97, but right around that time.
Okay.
Okay.
And I don't even use the word arbitrary, but somewhat arbitrary and just trying to map out best they could.
Why don't we review the recommendations
Yeah.
before we get too deep
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
regulatory
Just
stuff?
have to go fast, because we only have 15 minutes.
So the River Health and Advisory Action Team made a few recommendations. Those have been reviewed by the Community Economic Vitality Action Team, who generally agreed with these recommendations. Those recommendations were that first, that any setback should really align with the purpose, the guiding principle and purpose that the River Health and Access Action Team identified as part of their previous recommendation memo. And that was really that when you think about setbacks, that we should be thinking about criteria that enhance habitat, scenic improvements, and water quality, and to some extent, public access. That it's grounded in that core principle, and making sure that the setback still, if it is modified, that we're still making sure that those core principles are maintained. A recommendation to survey the 100-year floodplain so that we actually have a base starting point, versus the FEMA floodplain, which is a bit broader or could be broader. There was a recommendation that we need to make sure to address snow storage needs as it relates to floodplains, and then also a recommendation that we could consider simplifying the application of setbacks, incorporating the 175-foot setback from the 100-year floodplain. They wanted to see some examples from other communities in order to be able to understand, how are other similar communities with similar rivers, what kind of recommendations, guidelines, and development code do they require. There was a little bit of clarification that they wanted from town council about the ability to require public access. This is part of the development code language around setbacks for the River Protection Overlay District, where they're, as part of the Subdivision Act, required to provide public access. They wanted the screening requirements in the River Protection Overlay. That wasn't an issue for the River Health and Access Action Team. They wanted to be sure that was noted. They noted that they received the presentation and expressed that they understood the constraints that were set forward from the 75-foot setback. And they also noted that they also recognize that redevelopment can present opportunities to enhance river health and access by the fact of redevelopment. Anything you would clarify
Yeah,
there, Lisa?
I just would add, point 4, there's kind of two statements in there, and it's important, I think that everybody hears both. We recommended, we recommended to consider simplifying the 3 setbacks that Jeff just outlined, and to reconsider the need for the 175-foot setback. So it's really,
In
they're
addition.
two separate things in there, but.
Anything you would add, Jeff?
No, just I just think it's important that there are 3 setbacks. At least the presentation and the questions asked did not strike the Economic Vitality Action Team that there was any science and rigor when these were originally created in 1997. They struck us, and we kept asking the question, but they're fairly arbitrary. They were done with good reasons at the time, but we have more information, we have more technology, we have better ability to survey. The town is more mature. It's a great opportunity to relook how and why these were established.
So Stephanie, what do you need from us?
For the R2SE tonight, it's really an acknowledgement, because this is coming back to the River Health and Access Action Team with the research that we're doing on some example communities and the follow-up with the town council that will be shared back with the R2SE to make a further recognition. I guess we just wanted to make sure, because this is a BP issue and there was recognition that it has been a barrier to the Truckee River Partners project. Any comments that the committee wanted to provide, or any direction that the R2SE wanted to provide to River Health and Access Action Team as it comes back? I would be interested how many times the river's flooded up to that 100-foot past setback. Like, has it happened since 1997? It hasn't ever.
I was told that was the, quote,
Yeah.
1,000-year flood.
Has it happened?
1,000-year flood. Yeah, I mean,
That
I
was-
come from Pam's not here, so I'll throw the Napa thing in. Come from a town that flooded for a really long time, and then they did a lot of work to make sure it didn't flood. So I would just want to make sure that whatever's decided, like, we're not going to flood. That would be the only thing that I would say, so.
So it flooded in 1997, flooded this. I think in my childhood, it flooded too, once before, but
You can't, the only thing I would say, Jessica, is, we can't guarantee.
Sure,
Right,
yeah.
we just can't.
Just wanna make it-
Climate's changing.
Yeah.
Right.
right.
But that's
Yeah.
another good reason for understanding what is the 100-year floodplain.
Yep.
To
Mhm.
resurvey and understand that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, the Napa, it's a very different river, right, and different set of circumstances for how that all happened, but it's just always top of my mind when we talk about
But
floodplains.
it's not a frequent occurrence here by any means.
100-year.
That's a weird, it's
It's
not
a
once
misnomer,
in 100
right? It's
years,
not like
that's
a real
not what it
thing,
means.
yeah.
Isn't that what it means?
No, it isn't what it means.
It means that there's a 1% chance that flood will happen every single year, so that there's a 1% chance every single year that flood will happen.
Yeah.
Very strange.
We just had the Economic Vitality Action Team asked that if the town considered doing this, to reach out and canvass the landowners in the corridor for their input as well.
As far as if the town considered making it less, well, the property owners are gonna be for that, right? I don't know what
Done.
property owner
Check.
is gonna say,
It
"Yeah,
does
I want the 100.
I want my extra 100 feet that I can't develop on. It does feel like a really good step towards directly addressing a barrier that we heard, so I appreciate you guys taking that up.
But does
initiative.
it seems, I don't know that much about that, but it seems like 100 feet is a lot different than vertical. Why isn't it just a vertical
Well,
amount?
it could be, but right, if you have a very shallow parcel that, and, 1 foot vertical is actually,
Might be your whole.
it might be your whole
Parcel.
parcel, right? It
Right.
depends on your topography of your land, so it could have been, I don't know, because I'm just speculating. It could have been that they didn't have a topography, and they're like, oh, well, this might be better for this parcel because it's a shallower parcel, and the 1 vertical foot makes sense
Yeah.
in these steep parcels, but again, I'm speculating, so.
Public comment.
Should we close and then go to public?
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to be clear that, like, with the Truckee River Partners proposal, we weren't arguing for no setback beyond the 100-year floodplain. In fact, one of the committee members in the CVAP meeting said, what about no setbacks? And I immediately, and probably went out of turn as a public member, and said, I think you want a setback on the property I manage. But the setback that was set there, according to Tony Lashbrook, was pretty arbitrary, and they didn't have Google Maps at the time, and we have the data. I think I have a question really in terms of, what the timeline of that is and how likely we're gonna see the result of that at the R3 playbook, because the one thing that I know that was in my notes was that at least the proposal that we made that was kind of a hybrid, 75 feet from the high water mark, and 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain, that seemed reasonable to our hat. And I realized that language got toned down and it went to, like, we understand the constraints or something. But to me, and this doesn't, I think Lisa was speaking to it, but number 4 should really set clear guidance that this is something that, at least from my reading of both of these committees, it felt like it was important for there to be action taken to revisit these setbacks.
And I think it's important too that I'm not a hydrologist. I'm not the expert. But when we looked at it, like, why were they done like this? Like, well, the town was new, they just had a big flood.
You know, there's a, I don't think we need to get into that really.
Okay.
There's very good practices in many communities for
Yes.
doing these kind of setbacks.
That's what we need to do.
That's a professional standard. They were appropriate.
Okay.
And what we're seeing now is
Okay.
that we have some criteria that can be applied to decisions, and if the criteria is hit,
Okay.
the setbacks, we're recommending the setbacks could change.
Perfect.
Jason,
Okay.
did you have a couple comments?
I have a question. Is this topic going back to RHAT for further discussion, or is this output the final RHAT memo?
No, we were coming back with the examples, but, yeah.
So it is going back to RHAT to discuss?
No, it's
No,
not.
it's not, okay. I guess my only question is, kind of for the environmental side of question is there anything different environmentally speaking between our downtown setback, which is the 1-foot vertical, versus the non-downtown setback, which is 75 to 100 feet? Just what the what the, comparing and contrasting those, like what the environmental implications are.
But Stephanie got to this a little bit. She said that it's likely, we don't know for sure, because none of us were in the room. We don't know for sure, but it's likely that when they were laying this out and considering it, they were looking at the different landforms on East and West River Street, and so picked different, again, totally appropriate professional standards for considering different ways to define a setback based on the landform. That's likely,
I see.
although we don't, there's not a way to really know that.
I see.
So what's the action tonight that we're looking, I just wanna, because now I'm confused.
Well, there is recommendations that are in the playbook,
Okay.
and we'll make sure that those.
So these recommendations
But
are
we
in the
will be,
playbook?
and we will be coming
Okay.
forward with the examples, so give you that additional information.
Chair, if I could.
Please.
Jan Zabriskie couldn't be at the meeting tonight, but he emailed me some comments that he said if we were to get into this conversation, he wanted me to share. So I will just share, we don't have to dive deep, but I just wanted to share on his behalf. He said, I hope setbacks receive careful consideration. It would be nice to have wildlife experts opine on riparian wildlife corridors. I thought it would be good to have the committee review the town's topographic map with its 1-foot contours, speaking to some of what we just heard, to better appreciate flood risks and where the floodwaters would spread in the event of a 100-year, 500-year, or greater flood. We should remember that the 1996-1997 flood, which we discussed in the CVAT meeting, is considered a 50-year flood event by the U.S. Geological Survey. California's 1862 flood is considered the benchmark for potential flooding, but Truckee's records for that period are too scant to estimate its local impact. So, you addressed some of the things that we included.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
One is kind of historical. but-
Yes.
Any other information for us as we incorporate the playbook? Now we'll go to, the summary on, I went the wrong way. On legal, improving aesthetics of legal non-conforming uses. Jeff, do you wanna do these?
I don't, do we wanna, so we have 4 minutes, this is like
Yeah.
a long, we're not gonna get through it in 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think overall, the recommendation was really about that, number one, changing the zoning to mixed use helps with the legal non-conforming use.
Yes.
Two, there was discussion that building code, health, safety, life
Yes.
uses should not be relaxed. Those are, structures being updated, it should meet those requirements. That we can use the catalyst projects to learn how flexibility could be incorporated, just need to track those with metrics. A discussion about decoupling the tight-knit nature between uses and structures. So if if the structure wants to upgrade, but the use is incompatible, perhaps the structure still can get upgraded.
Okay.
And the use, those pieces are different. And then this idea of providing more discretion for approval if the improvements provide public benefits. This goes back to this idea,
Right.
Is there a matrix of the goals and the recommendations that are out of the playbook? And right now, the current threshold is about 50%, so you could improve your property to 50% of its value. Perhaps you could do 75% if I'm gonna do,
build a trail or provide public access or do some of the other pieces that have been identified in the playbook, that there's could be some trade-offs of an incentive to still reinvest in your property, and getting some of the other community benefits as a whole.
Good recap.
So you'll see those.
Questions?
Flow through in the, you'll see those flow through in the legal mapping in the playbook as well.
Yep.
So with playbook, so I believe Carissa, you handed out
And I've emailed everybody.
the playbooks. So
Did this
we
just
will also send out for those who have done this before. We'll also send out some digital links to be able to provide comments on the playbook. You'll be divided up into 3 groups, so you can't see more than a third of the group's comments on the playbook.
For Brown Act reasons.
We'll also be loading the playbook onto the town's website for the R2SC with a comment link box, a survey link box for public comments on the playbook as well. For comments, feel free to add them in the digital form. If you don't like using the digital form and want to do hard copy and then give that to Carissa, feel free to do that. If you'd like to set up a time to talk to me directly about comments, we can do that as well. Just let Carissa know and we'll find a time for that to happen. We're looking for comments to come back by May 20th or May 19th.
I say I put 19th in the email to everybody.
May 19th. Questions?
It's exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
There are some still, you'll see there are some placeholders for the RHAT maps. Those were not up to quality. But essentially the recommendation maps that have been previously part of the RHAT memo are getting uploaded both into the document itself and then there will be an appendix. So just know that those are happening. They just weren't graphically there yet.
I'll just point, I have not read the roadmap or the playbook, but I did from another member who's not here this evening ask about the road, what we're gonna do with the road, which I've asked about as well.
So it is mentioned in the, in portions.
Road alignment on West River.
But not road realignment, as we were going through
Okay.
both the, committee member reviews and when we went to the chip game, and the alternatives of
Yep.
doing a full realignment versus opportunities to shift alignment, that would be part of streetscape enhancements and not a wholesale
Yep.
realignment.
Tunnel it.
So at our next meeting, we're gonna be approving this, or more discussion on.
Hopefully there's a recommendation to move forward with approval.
That's what we're trying to get
That's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying
Right,
to get to.
so the comments we send in, by the 20th.
Again, our quickest turnaround for that would be the Thursday upload. So it would be a quick review back for this committee. So we'd be able to integrate comments.
Let's try.
We'll
Let's try.
Let's try. We're gonna, what was the term used? The end zone.
Yeah, diving catch in the end zone.
Diving catch in the end zone.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah, we'll try the diving catch in the end
Steph, are you
zone.
concerned about that, Julie? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, we haven't talked about the legal non-conforming uses that deeply. I think it's not something to skip over easily, but I don't know how everybody else feels about it. I think it's probably one of the biggest elephants in the room.
I will share that the CVAT talked about it very in-depth.
The
The CVAT that came to the recommendations that were in the presentation.
Yes, yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
I read that.
And that was one of the other reasons for thinking about this plan a different process to be able to allow for some flexibility for people to.
An incremental.
Do some improvements if there was a trade-off in the community benefit piece. So we can explore that.
Okay. In the interest of time, is there any public comment? Chair, oh, sorry, Lisa.
No, thank you though.
No, okay. Any committee member updates?
My only one is that 4th of July parade is coming, so sponsorships are open for another couple weeks, and then we're really looking for people to participate, so.
And what's the theme?
Well,
Get
play on
your-
the third.
I know you will, I'm crazy. The theme is Futuristic Friday. take with that what you will.
Are you asking for an R2SC float?
Oh my gosh, yes, please make an R2SC float. Yep.
You do it, Jessica.
No, I already have a float. I have a chamber float I have
What
to
was the
try to
theme
get
last
people to
year?
do. Throwback Thursday.
Okay. See, yeah.
Futuristic Friday. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Any other,
Yeah, we also have Truckee Thursdays will be starting on June 26th. Will be the very first one. We're doing all 8 weeks with no break for 4th of July this year. So
Oh.
after you have a great 4th of July parade, we'll be kicking it off to get everybody
There you
warmed
go.
up for the 4th
Wow.
of July parade.
Wow.
So it'll be a fun weekend.
When does the
downtown.
farmer's market start?
That one
Today, I think.
Downtown.
It's
think
on
next week.
Truckee.com. Hold on, let me look. I think it was today.
It's either this week or next week. Any other updates?
There's a maker show at the airport,
Oh, yeah.
on June
Eighth,
8th?
I think?
8th or the 20th?
I think it's the 8th.
Eighth?
It's
Okay.
Truckee Pride.
Truckee
Okay.
Day is the 7th.
Yep,
Yes.
and it's the
Yes.
week of Truckee Pride.
Okay, June 8th, and there's also gonna be an aviation steam element to it this year. So there will not be flying, but there will be a number of aircraft, around the maker show as well.
Since we don't have an air show, we get back.
Yes. That's right.
Farmer's Market starts next Tuesday.
Okay.
It's Mother's Day this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Bring 'em
Yes.
Okay, are there any comments on the committee member updates? Oh. Okay, seeing none, closing public comment. So I guess we adjourn the meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting is June 3rd.
Good job.
Good job, Jeff.
Debbie, you
Thanks,
should-
Joan.
Thank you guys, thanks so much.
Mark,
Bye,
you're-
Joan.